ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very, very, very excited for this podcast. I've got an incredible, beautiful, elegant, sexy, what other words can I use? My guest, ladies and gentlemen, is the one and only, my beautiful partner, Georgia Gata. How are you, baby?
I'm good. How you going?
I'm amazing. It's been a long while since we've actually done a podcast together.
Over a year.
How was our first one? Tell me about the first one if you can remember it.
The first one we did was, I think it was when we had just started seeing each other. Like we were 1 month into seeing each other, but no one really knew yet. It was kind of on the down low. You weren't really wanting a relationship. And it was more so about, I think it was supposed to be about OnlyFans, and it ended up turning into like a whole daddy issues sort of chat, which was really cool. But yeah, over 2 years ago now. It's
been an incredible, just FYI for the guys listening in, we have no notes in front of us. We have no questions to stimulate this. We've got a topic that we're going to talk about, but we're just going to free wing this one, the old style of doing it. But just have a look back, like with us right now, we've come so far since that last one.
Yeah, a long way.
How long have we been together for now?
We met 2 years ago this month. So we've been together for like a year and 8 months. Yeah.
And together for,
a year and 8 months.
In January. All right. Well, Georgia Carter, what I would love to go through today is we live and breathe this, which is amazing. If anything, I just want to really talk about how we've come to where we are now and where we're still forever evolving our relationship. How did we get here? And how could we help other people? Because I know you see this with your friends and family. People either in relationships that they're not really happy with, or they just kind of tolerate like a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, or they're not open and honest about what they really want, or their fantasies, or their needs and desires in a relationship. So I would say our relationship is pretty awesome. Like, I love our relationship. Everyone has room to grow, as we do as well. But like, we communicate incredibly well. Like, our chats lately have been fucking phenomenal.
Next level. And there's been so many of them.
And they're like, I actually, one day, if you're open to this, I actually film an argument.
Yeah.
Because just the way we do it, we balance things out really well. We let each other speak. We actually get outcomes out of arguments rather than just kind of snapping at each other for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great way for people to not pedestal our relationship as well, to see that every couple goes through arguments and discussions and has tough times, and it's not all, rainbows and fairy tales.
And sex and fucking parties. So,
yeah.
Tell me, just tell me your experience. What's your experience like with this? Let's start with that. What's your experience been like with this relationship versus other ones you've experienced and other ones that you see?
I think the best way to put my experience with this relationship is it's one of the most beautifully challenging things I've ever experienced in my life. And I say that with, all good intention and good reason, that it's challenging in such an incredible way. I think I went into this relationship with the expectations that, relationships are perfect and fighting is bad and you should love each other and want to be around each other all the time. And I feel like after being in this relationship for so long, it's shown me that relationships are fucking hard. There is a lot of work that goes into relationships that not many people talk about. And there is so much growth, and especially being in a relationship with someone with you who is so great at open communication and giving honest feedback. I've actually grown so much more individually in this relationship as well as together as a couple, if that makes sense. I actually think this relationship has helped me find myself solo as a person way better than anything I did beforehand, because it's forced me to have uncomfortable chats, uncomfortable times, so much, mental and physical growth as well, and so much growth around other aspects of my life that I was avoiding. So I think that's one of the best ways to describe how this relationship makes me feel, is it's beautifully challenging.
Beautifully challenging. I like the Ray Dalio says, what does he say? It's thoughtful disagreement.
Yeah.
Like there's
an intention behind the disagreement.
If my mind just went crazy when you were talking just then, but what would be some of the really kind of milestone moments in this relationship that really gave you either growth or consciousness or improvement, or whether it's a thing like we've implemented, like a structure, or a just moments like I'm picturing our little mushroom session, if you're okay.
Yeah, I'm picturing that too.
But not just that, but like what are maybe your top 3, or just maybe the ones that come to mind that have really shaped you as a partner in this relationship and the relationship structure as a whole?
Okay. I think one of the biggest ones for me is it's not a single event. It's just the consistency of having those tough conversations and actually being upfront and honest about your emotions and how you feel, and me being in a safe place to be able to tell you how I'm feeling and to be able to communicate any feedback about a relationship and have those tough conversations with you. I think before coming into this relationship, I used to avoid those types of conversations because I didn't like hurting people's feelings. And honestly, I was a bit of a people pleaser and I just didn't want to cause any conflict. So I used to just avoid it and then stew on it, and it would create all these other issues. So by being in this relationship, it's forced me to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Wow.
And that in itself has been such a blessing because it's been translated into my relationships with my friends, my relationships with my family, my relationship with myself. You know, I can have tough conversations with myself. I can really sit down and give myself feedback and improve on that.
Sorry to not, you can continue with that thought. What is an example of a tough conversation? Like, let's say we were to have one right now. How would we do it? Because I love the topic. I think that answer was beautiful. But then some people are like, well, like some people's version of a tough conversation might be a lot different than what we kind of envision. So,
okay.
like, say we were to have something, say right now, have you got something on your mind? Let's fucking do one. Have you got something on your mind that you want to bring up to
I
me?
don't have something on my mind right now, but I think the conversation we had this week about the, being complacent with each other and not putting an effort anymore was something that we really had to bring up. Like,
so let's go back and step it through us. So like, we're not going to have the whole chat, but how do you instigate a chat? Like, how do you instigate a tough conversation? And like, what are the kind of rules and boundaries you have around actually doing one?
So I'm definitely not perfect with instigating these tough conversations. And I will be the first to admit that sometimes I do stew on it a little bit, and then rather than bringing it up, something else will trigger it, and then I will kind of not explode, but then I will just get a bit emotional, and then that forces us to have the deep conversation. And I've been working on not doing that as much. So the way that I've been trying to do this is to, if something bothers me, to really think about it, write it down, and, you know, come up with 3 positives and 3 negatives of that situation. Like, okay, how is this good and how is this bad? To get myself in a more neutral state and less emotional, so that when I bring it up, we can actually have a productive conversation and work through the issue rather than it just turning into a screaming match at each other.
Absolutely. And even tell us your kind of perspective now on just being able to see that there are pros and cons, balance, as you know,
it's changed my life.
So how would you give a short version on that?
The pros and cons to like the tough conversations, or just in general?
Just being able to see the pros and cons. Because someone, if they say, look, I need to have a chat about my partner not being satisfied. We've had this chat before about our being satisfied in the bedroom.
Yeah,
it's
about
like,
what we actually want and what we don't want.
Yeah, like some people, or not even that, but just the topic that they want to bring up, the topic or the issue or the quote problem, they don't see any positives in the problem. But it's like a positive, like I know you know this. So how would you tell from your perspective someone to just be aware that everything you talk about
has 2 sides?
Yeah, it's not one-sided. How would you say that?
I think, like, speaking from experience, being someone who does feel quite deeply. So when I have emotions, I do feel quite deeply. And speaking from experiences, it is really hard to see both sides sometimes, especially when you are so one-sided and you're so in your head about it, because, you know, you're focusing on you're focusing on all the negatives of the situation. And in that moment, it's actually feeding into that story that you're creating about the situation, and you're blinding yourself from seeing any positives. So of course, when you go into a conversation being completely one-sided, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to say a bunch of shit, basically, how you feel, but there's going to be no outcome from it. And you're not going to be able to see anyone else's perspective or side because you're so in
100%.
that one-sided state.
Beautiful.
And I mean, that's fine in a way if you need to vent, but at the same time, you can't really progress or come up with solutions when you are so in one side of that mind frame, really. Like, when you're so focused on the negative, how else are you going to see the positives and be able to find a solution if you can't see both sides, if that makes sense?
100%. And so we don't go all in on this topic the whole time. Just how would you start a chat? So say you come home and something's been on your mind, something's triggered you, something's popped up, and you're like, fuck, this is a problem, or this is a opportunity for us to grow as a couple, which is a frame that I do use quite often. how would you come home and lead into that conversation rather than like, I know some people bottle shit up and then it just explodes and the conversation begins. How would you like intentionally create a safe space? How would you just give yourself the highest probability of having a great conversation?
I think I would read the situation. I would read the energy in the room. Like if your partner, if you were trying to bring this up to your partner, if I was trying to bring this up to you and you're in work mode, that's clearly not a good time to bring up that conversation because you're not going to have that open and honest feedback and you're not going to have the right energy for the conversation. So I think assessing the situation, assessing what mood your partner is in first is a really good start to make sure that they're actually in a space that's going to be receptive of this feedback and not in a defensive state as well. Like just say if they're distracted with other things.
Yeah.
But I think going into it, I would like sit them down. Well, I'd sit you down and I would pre-frame you. I'd be like, you know, babe, you know how much I love you and I really respect you and I love our relationship. Is it okay if I bring something up to you that's been bothering me for a bit? So just pre-frame them being like, this is a safe space. I love you. And I really appreciate you, but there is something that is bothering me and I would really like to work through it with you.
Beautiful. And we won't go through this whole, we'll end it on this last point, then we'll divert to something else. Then just what are like maybe a couple, I guess, maybe rules or tips along the way? Like something I think of straight away is learn to not cut each other off, and we still do it to each other, but I think since we started anyway, it's so much better. And it's hard to quite bite your tongue and actually let someone get to the point that they're making rather than just cutting each other off and off and off, and then that builds momentum into an argument. That's one rule I have. So we
are getting a lot better at that, but we still struggle with that. And it's very hard, especially when you're in a state where you feel like you have something to say to counteract what your partner's saying. It's very hard to keep quiet and give them the space and the opportunity to talk.
The other day. We literally, I put my hand up when I had something to say. That was quite funny. But, do you have any other rules or any other tips around that?
I think the other thing would be conscious of your body language and the way you're breathing. I think I first and foremost definitely work on this the most, the breathing and regulating my breathing and not getting into like an anxious state. But I think as well, like the body language is a big thing. You watch, say, arguments on TV and things, and they're at complete opposite ends of the room. They're not close to each other at all and they're really avoiding it. But I feel like if you go in as well, you've set that intention, you've pre-framed the situation and you aren't hostile in your body language. So like rather than being closed off as if like you don't want anything to do with them, have better body language, sit next to them or sit in front of them, touch them on the leg or something, like if that's your love language, but be mindful of your body language because other people pick up on that. So if you've got hostile body language that's really closed off, the other person's going to pick up on that and they're probably going to be a bit defensive or they're probably not going to want to open up as much.
Love that. You're a fucking genius. You really are. No, honestly, like being just a compliment to you, and I tell you this all the time, but now's an opportunity to do it in a public scene. You've come so far. Like you grow every single day. You work on yourself every day, and it's inspiring just to see. I got little watery eyes for the camera. Like it's inspiring to see how far you've come and how determined you are every single day to be a better person. So it's amazing. Just hearing the way you speak. You speak. You should listen. We should listen to the old podcast with you and the one you're doing right now. Just the way you communicate, the way you speak, the way you hold yourself, the confidence behind your words. It's fucking inspiring.
Thank you, baby.
I love you, baby. I love you so much.
I love you. And just going off of something you just said in that thing, about what you just said about like, putting in the effort every day to be a better version of yourself. I think that's another mentality that you can go into these tough conversations, especially it doesn't have to be in a relationship. It could be with anyone. But if you go into the mentality that everything's going to be fixed and perfect and, all great after that, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure. I think you need to realize that nothing's ever going to be perfect. And, you can have this conversation and things can be implemented, but people are still going to make mistakes.
100%.
If you go in with the attitude of, okay, how can we grow together through this? How can we just improve and better how we were yesterday? I think that's a much better approach and a much more realistic approach to actually improve the situation or improve the topic that you're discussing rather than one conversation and it's fixed, because it's not. People are going to make mistakes, and that's something that we've had to learn is that, we can have these conversations and then we still fuck it up.
Yeah.
And then, you debrief it again and you have that conversation again and, okay, well, this worked and this didn't.
Beautiful.
It's just being better and growing each time you do it. No one's ever going to be perfect.
And the thing that, this will be the last part on this topic, is something that really helps me out. Just tough conversation. You said it yourself. It's not just in this relationship. It's with your friends, your family, for myself, my business, my managers, my trainers, my staff. I don't use the word staff, my team members is like, I think about like, what's the what's the consequence of not having this chat? And then what are the benefits of doing it? Because at the end of the day, the benefit of tough conversation is there's growth. If done correctly, with the right intention, framed correctly, with the right boundaries, the right regulation of emotions, everything you just said, like just the lessons and the growth, like every chat we have, a tough chat we have, or I don't even need to do a tough, just open chat that we have when we give each other feedback, it's like we just get 1 or 2 or 3% better in different areas, whether that's in the bedroom, whether that's just communicating, whether that's spending time together, whether that's structuring our days together, whether that's, work on our finances together, our financial goals. Like we just continuously get better, but it stems from those conversations. So,
and I think as well, like the more you have these types of conversations, and even if they're hard and they're emotional, it actually connects you more deeply. So you're actually connecting more on an intellectual level, on a more emotional level, on such a deeper level. So it actually brings you closer. And I know with our chats that we have, in the moment I may feel really upset or emotional or things like that. But afterwards, when we've, regulated and we've done it really well to just communicate and be in a safe space with each other, I feel so much more connected with you energetically and mentally.
Absolutely. Oh, we could just talk about this all day. It's already been going for 16 minutes. Let's divert a bit. So I would love to, it was the topic that I wanted to talk about the most, is I guess structure. This is what we are talking about to a degree. Tough conversations is part of a structure. But I guess the more taboo topic that we did mention in our last conversation is, I guess maybe even an update or a progress of how we've been going, living in and this is even part of the conversation, it's not quite an open relationship, but there's aspects of it. And it's like, the part I would love to start with, and I'll love for you to continue, is before I got into a relationship with you, I was single for a long time, and I wouldn't get into one because I had some limiting beliefs of my own. I thought relationships were painful. I saw more negatives than positives, and I was just really detached from it. And some of the bigger points that really stood out to me was the divorce rate. It was the percentage of couples that cheat on each other. And it was that thought of having one sexual partner for a long time. And if you ask all the men in the world, I reckon 80% plus would say something along the same lines. Maybe
not even just men. I think women, deep
women
down,
as well.
even women who are monogamous, and I've always been like a hardcore monogamous person my entire life. There's still always going to be that part of you that wonders, or that part of you that gets into situations that is going to be curious. It's human nature. We're designed to be sexually curious.
And like life is about variety. It's not just, and I hate using this example in the bedroom, but it's just an analogy that makes sense because I don't mean Georgia is vanilla. But say you have vanilla ice cream from Baskin Robbins and you say, this is my favorite flavor, but you haven't even tried anything else. Not to say that that still won't be your favorite, but is there anything wrong with changing it up once now and then? And I know that's not the best analogy to use with a sexual partner, but you guys know what I'm getting at. Is if you have the same, quote, ice cream every single time, sometimes you want to mix it up, you want to spice it up. And obviously you can spice that up individually with role play, with toys, with, just setting the mood, going on a vacation. You can do all that stuff as well. But at the end of the day, having a different energy involved, whether that's another man or another woman.
I think that's another thing for us to pre-frame here, like in terms of opening up our sexual relationship. It's not like that we want to just go around and fuck all these other people. It's not even, for me, and I know for you, Lewis, it's not even like really much of a physical thing. It's more of an energy thing, because for me, when I have sex, I am very energetically and emotionally connected. And people's energies are completely different, and you get curious about what that type of energy would be like with someone else. And, at the end of the day, sexual energy is one of the most powerful forms of energy, and it's one of the most authentic and primal forms of energy as well. So I think we should just pre-frame that with that's what we mean. For us, that's what opening up our relationship was more about. It wasn't about like, oh, I just want to fuck all these different people just because I can.
Yeah.
It's more so I really enjoy, and I know you do as well, experiencing different energies.
100%. If anyone knows me through meeting me, through my businesses, or through just connecting with me, I'm a very energetic person. I love hugging people. I'm going to get free hugs on my shirt. I've seen someone wear a shirt like that. But I love hugging people. I love feeling people. I love just being around other people's aura, their energy, their presence. And it's not addicting. I guess you could use the word addicting, but it's just I just love to experience it.
It's fulfilling.
So Anyway, so that was me. That was me coming into this, I guess, attracting you, I guess. And I guess I attracted you for the right reason. Someone who was open to it, and someone who not even was open to it. I think you're starting to enjoy it more and more as we go deeper down the rabbit hole. But anyway, so that was my mindset. I'd done 2 books that would I really recommend. One is The Way of the Superior Man. Phenomenal book. I'd really recommend got any men and women doing that. It's not just a men book, even though the title of it. It is can very much help the females out. And also The Ethical Slut. Now, the name of that might throw a couple people off, but me and Georgia have both done that book, and
Very
it just
powerful.
very, very powerful. Just gives you more perspective. It gives you, like you mentioned, monogamous, and that's the white picket fence. Go to school, go to uni, get a job, work for 50 years, get married, have kids, have a mortgage.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Nothing wrong with that.
And this is why The Ethical Slut is such a fantastic book, is because it shows all the different forms of relationships. I feel like people are so used to it being, okay, you're either monogamous or you're in an open relationship where you just fuck other people separately. But that's not what it is. Like, we're in a time in the world now where there are so many different forms of relationships, and people are really just finding what works for them. And you don't have to fit into societal norms to have a successful functioning relationship. So that's one of the things as well that they really touch on in that book, is that, you know, if you're monogamous, that's fantastic. If you want an open relationship, that's great. If you want to experiment with other people, that's also great. Every single form of a relationship is completely valid. It's just finding the type that works for you and being honest about that, and not lying to yourself about it, and putting yourself into a situation where you're really unhappy, because that's not going to be able to last long term.
And why do you think so many people struggle with it? Like, just that concept as a whole.
Based on my personal experience, jealousy, insecurities, abandonment issues, like I can talk about that for myself, I think. And also we've been brought up with this concept that, you know, you can't share, if that makes sense. If you love someone, how could you possibly want to be with someone else?
Yes, let's talk about that.
That was something that I had to really work a lot on.
I definitely agree with that. Keep going, keep talking. I definitely agree.
I think the biggest things that people struggle with this would be a combination of insecurities and jealousy, and they both feed into each other.
Amazing.
And that's the really cool part about opening up your relationship, because it actually forces you to work on, okay, well, what's actually causing my insecurity and jealousy here? Where is that coming from? And then it actually brings it up. And even though that's really fucking uncomfortable sometimes, and it can be painful, bringing those up means that you can heal them. And
Absolutely.
You can work from them, and then you don't let it hold you back for the rest of your life. So it's actually a blessing in disguise going through that pain, because you become aware of what is actually causing your triggers.
We had a chat. So 2 points. My most recent podcast, this might come out later, but number 72 is about triggers, and it's exactly what you just said. And something you said the other day, which is, I think it was yesterday or the day before, like, by being the nature of being in more of an open-ish relationship. Like, I don't put us in the label of being in an open relationship. We have a relationship.
Well, for context, what we do
let's share our boundaries. Let's go.
So
Boundary
for
time.
us, we like to, if the opportunity presents itself, or if we both feel like we want to, we like to have fun with other people together. So we do everything as a couple. We want to share in that experience together, because honestly, the times that we have experience with other people, you know, threesomes, etc., it's actually bonded us more, and I felt more emotionally connected to you. And it's been a really good way to explore other people and to just see how strong our trust and relationship is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do, is like our sort of boundaries are, we do things together with other people.
Beautiful. And how do we come to that? Like, for someone, I'd say someone right now is listening, they're like, fuck, that sounds amazing. That's right. I've had fears of being with one person forever because I'm a sexual person. I like to experience other women, other men. And I would really love to do that, but I don't know how do I talk to someone about that? How do I attract someone about that? How do I have that conversation with someone? Tough conversation. We actually spoke about that in the start of this podcast. How did we get to that point? Because you go.
Before we even actually became official in our relationship, you were pretty upfront about the fact that that was something that you wanted to have, and you were very upfront about the fact that you didn't want an open relationship, like sleeping with other people separately. You wanted to experience other people with me, so threesomes, orgies, all sorts of stuff we haven't done yet, but like all that sort of things that you wanted to experience together. And so you pre-framed me with that. You were very upfront about that. And if I'm being completely honest, I had no interest in doing that, and it freaked me the fuck out. But I was so wanting to be with you that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it for him. And the first sort of year of our relationship, before I had really started working on any of my insecurities or jealousy, I was doing it for you. It wasn't for me, and I really didn't want to do it. And that was where we were having a lot of issues with it because we hadn't done anything. I was coming up with excuses to not do it.
Just for context, it took us a year
to have our first one.
And then
we've had one more since and a couple of other opportunities, but things have come up.
Just business and stuff.
Like, it's not like we're doing this every weekend. This is something that we both have to feel ready for. But for a bit of context, for me personally, the reason why I had so many fears and insecurities was that I have had threesomes in the past where they haven't been a good time for me. I've had a threesome, especially with another woman, where the guy told me that, like, I got left out basically the entire time, and I felt really shitty about that. And the guy was like, sorry, I just like skinnier girls and you're too big for me.
Yeah.
And that was a huge trigger deep in my brain. So in my mind, going into these sort of things, especially the ones with women, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be left out. Is she going to be hotter than me? Is he going to fantasize about her every time we have sex after this? Is he just going to completely forget about me? Like, all of this stuff. Is he going to fall in love with her? All of these sort of insecurities and triggers literally arising from that one experience, from that threesome. And that was really holding me back from doing it. And I just didn't have any good references to go on. So of course I was still living in the past, being like, well, what if, like focusing on the worst case scenario. And we had to really work on that. And I had to put in the work to do that. And, you know, and you really helped me with that as well by you were communicating so openly, being like, well, do you trust me? And I did. And so we had our first experience and it was amazing. All of my I went in, I was so nervous and I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to be left out? I was freaking out, like, and we got in there and I had no insecurities. I had no jealousy. And it was this mind-blowing, energetic experience that we had. And I actually felt so much more deeply connected to you. And then I actually realized, fuck, okay, I actually really enjoy women's energies, not necessarily just physically, but I actually really enjoy the emotional, energetic side of sex with a woman. And that was a really powerful thing for me. So since then, I've still been working on my triggers and insecurities, and trust me, they still pop up. And, you know, people think that you're gonna heal them completely. They're gonna keep popping up. You're gonna cross more boundaries and things are gonna come up, and emotions and things. You know, you're never gonna be perfect, but I'm still actively working on them. And, you know, the second experience we had with another woman, I fucking enjoyed so much. I think I even enjoyed it more than you did, to be honest. Like, it was incredible energetically and physically. And again, like, a little trigger came up into it and we spoke about it. We had that tough conversation and we worked through it. And, you know, now that I look at it, I'm like, this is a really amazing way for me to explore energetic sex, because the type of sex that I had had really before you was never really, like, there was good sex, but there was never really emotional sex. I was never really connected with the person.
We'll do another podcast on that topic.
Yeah, like sorry, I'm just going down the rabbit hole.
No, well, you just don't go all the way down that rabbit hole. But yeah, like the difference, like what porn does to what real sex is, like, is the jackhammer rabbit, get in there and just like hammer the girls really hard and make it painful. Like, and the girls, some do enjoy it, but some just act like they enjoy it, which I know you've experienced yourself. So yeah, we'll do a whole podcast on that.
And I think like the opening the relationship up for me and having these experiences with you, I've actually really learned to really enjoy it, because yes, I've got heaps of experiences sexually to go off. I definitely had my hoe phase, like when I was 18 and 19, and I've had lots of threesomes and things, but I've never really had energetic sex like that. I've never really had sex that is much more than physical, where it's so much more connected and emotional. So for me now, I'm so excited about it, because I'm like, well, fuck, I've never had this before, and I really want to experience it more, you know, with other men, with other women. Like, who knows? Like, it's just opened up this little thing for me that I was like, fuck, I never even realized I'd missed out on this until I've tried it with you.
Bang, drop the mic. We didn't actually answer the original question.
Oh,
thank you for the tangent. You're like me now.
Yeah, I know.
You become like me. Love to chat. So the original question was, how do you have
the tough conversation?
Well, I guess that's possibly a step you need to take. But how would you go from, say, right now, there's a single gentleman or a single lady watching this, let's call them Sarah and John, and they say, look, I want this style of relationship. And again, it might be different to our boundaries. You might want a boundary where you guys can both sleep with separate people, or you might only do it together, or you like, I don't know, it depends. There's so many that's why I do the book The Ethical Slut, because it just gives you so many, like there's ones
I
where
recommend every single person does that book.
it's incredible. And it's like there's people that have like multiple wives, like 3 or 4 wives. And again, nothing wrong with that. That's not my style, that's not my thing. But say someone has a goal of a non-monogamous relationship. That's their desires, that's what they want, that's what would fulfill them. How would they go about attracting that person, having that chat at the start to figure out their boundaries? Because you're not going to just nail it. Like, we didn't nail it at the start. I don't actually think we'd say we're 100% there. I reckon 80, 90% there. And as we have more experiences, we'll figure out what we love. We might do it and like, fuck yeah, that was sick. Let's do that more often. Or we're like, look, that wasn't really as good as we thought it was going to be. Let's, why was that? And we'll figure out why, and we'll debrief and we'll move forward. But back to the question, how would Sarah or John, how would they go about attracting, creating, getting into a non-monogamous relationship?
I think, so as an individual, just say you were the individual and you knew you wanted a more open style of relationship as an individual. I think first step is to prioritize your own growth with that. So I think something that most people should do is, if you want an open relationship, understand why you want that, understand if it's for the right reasons or if it's for the wrong reasons. And, do the research, really research there are so many resources available for open relationships or polyamorous couples and things like that are available. So I would say put in the work and research it. Figure out what type of relationship you want and be very clear on, if you want an open relationship or if you want to have fun with others with your partner. Get clear on what exactly you want to have in that relationship. And, when you meet someone, I think it's really important to be upfront about it.
Absolutely. To
be honest from the get-go. Like, it doesn't have to be on the first date being like, oh, by the way, I want an open relationship. But, if you're like 5-6 dates in with someone and you see potential for a relationship with them, I think not telling them and then getting into a relationship and then later expecting them to do it.
Which is what most people do. And
I think
that's what fucks most of it up. Because then, sorry to cut you off and you will continue, is then they just kind of do it like you were at the start, doing it just to keep the other person happy, where deep down, if you don't actually enjoy it, it won't be sustainable.
And it's not fair on the other person.
Not fair. Absolutely.
And I mean, obviously there are circumstances where you could have been in a relationship for, 10 years and then you figure out that, I actually want to open it up. And that's a whole nother subject completely.
That's a different conversation.
But, if going into a relationship that's what you want, you got to be upfront and honest about it. And you can do that in a really great way. So I would say, if you've got someone who was like me, who was like hardcore monogamous, for context, I used to sleep with this guy who got into an open relationship and he wanted to sleep with me while he was in the open relationship. And I was like, no, open relationships are fucking disgusting. Like, they're not real relationships. And I was so triggered and judgmental by that. So I know that there are a lot of people with that mindset because I've been there. And I think the key is education. I think the key is, if you've got someone who is hardcore monogamous, regardless of what their attitudes around it is, if they're open or not open to the feedback or education on it, I would say get them to read The Ethical Slut, get them to start exploring those sorts of things through all the books and resources that are available, and start having conversations about it, being like, okay, well, if you don't want this, how come you, try to understand from their perspective. If they want a monogamous relationship, really try to understand why they want a monogamous relationship. And then you can communicate why you want an open relationship, and maybe you can meet in the middle somewhere. But I think the biggest thing is to be upfront. And at the end of the day, sometimes that's going to mean that you might not be meant to be with that person. Because if you've got something as big as this topic, it's not going to work long term if you've got two people who want two different things sexually. And, people try to say that sex doesn't matter in relationships, and for some couples it doesn't. If you've got two couples who are low sex drives, of course it's not going to be as important. But for majority of people, sex is fucking important. And if the relationship doesn't have healthy, good sex, it's not going to work out long term, because sex is such a primal human thing, and it's something that's completely normal and is very, very important to intimacy in a relationship. So if you have two people who want completely different things sexually and you try to force them into a relationship together and you try and make it work, and one person's compromising, one person's not happy, it's just going to lead to all of this mistrust, jealousy, lack of communication. And ultimately, I don't think the relationship would work. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but that's what you kind of have to look at, being like, well, I really want to be with this person, but is it going to work long term? And if it's not, you have to have the courage to be like, okay, well, it's not going to work. And I have to put myself first because I don't want to get into this situation where this turns hostile because we want different things.
That was incredible. Listen to that back again. That was amazing. Well done, baby. That was well said. As you were talking, because you kind of mentioned, we did say it's a different topic completely, but say right now someone's in a relationship and they've had that desire for so long, but they felt guilty because of their upbringing, maybe the position you were in, like the upbringing, the monogamous viewpoint, the perspectives that you had, that they're fucked, that's whatever. But maybe they've just heard this and like, fuck, they go read the book. They're in a relationship, they read the book, and now their mind starts to wander, and they haven't spoken to their partner about it. They haven't had that chat with their partner about it. How would you go about doing that? How would you have that tough chat with your partner to be like, hey, look, I'm curious, I'm interested, this has been on my mind, I want to start to explore this. How would you do that?
I mean, honestly, like, I've never been in that situation. So, of course, what I'm about to say is just my perspective on it. And I've got no experience in the area. So don't take this as like fact and this is how to do it. But I think, you know, just say you've got someone who's like, just say you're married and you've got kids together and they've grown up, and then you are later in life and you decide you want to open it and explore things up. I think the biggest priority needs to be on both people. Like, it can't just all be about you. You've got to factor in that this is a serious relationship that you've been in for ages, and this is going to be a big thing for the other person. If it's one person who wants to bring it up, you've got to be understanding that that person may not take it well. That person may not warm up to the idea straight away. And I think that, again, education is key. So if you've started reading books like this, maybe have a conversation with your partner being like, hey, I read this amazing book. I think you'd really enjoy it. It's like been challenging my views on things, and I think you could get a lot of value out of it. So include them in your decision, not just your decision, because obviously it takes two to make the decision, but include them in your learning and your exploration of what you want. If you are doing this, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship, if you're being separate to your partner and doing all of this exploration separately, like all this reading and all of these thoughts that are going through your head, I guarantee that if you bring it up to your partner and you've already had all of this and it's been going on for months, they're going to feel extremely excluded. They're going to feel extremely left out and potentially abandoned. And it's obviously not going to go down well. So I feel like if you start experiencing these thoughts and things, I would say try and include your partner with them from when you start having them, so that it's something that you are exploring together, and so that your partner feels included in what you're going through.
And you can discuss those things as you learn them. When you listen to the book, or you listen to, you hear something, you find something, like, you guys can discuss it, because like what we said at the start, there's no right, wrong, perfect structure for everyone. It's like whatever's right for you. So there might be only, like, say 10% of structure that you want, but that's perfect for what you both want. Yeah. So, but you'll only figure that out by discussing it
and doing it together,
and doing it
and
together,
being and having both partners equally involved in the conversation. And I think, especially if it's a relationship that's been going on, like, that's been there for a while and it's got a big foundation, I think you need to accept that your progression to this, if it's going to happen, it's going to be slow.
100%.
And I think you just need to accept and be honest about that front, that it's going to be a big change. And even by having small changes, so just say, like, you have this conversation and your partner's like, you know what, I'm willing to try this experience, blah, 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 etc. like that. Like, it's going to take a little while to get all those steps. You might want to try different things. Like, for some couples, like, it could be watching porn together, because I know some people get jealous of porn, like of their partner watching porn. So that could be a step in the right direction as an example for something like that. And then if your partner is willing to then open things up, I think I would say be very conscious of who you choose to bring in, and be very conscious of establishing your boundaries and establishing what is okay and what is not okay to you, and making sure that if you are bringing another person in, that they are respectful of your boundaries, that they respect your relationship, and that they understand everything as well. I
think you need to make a podcast by yourself about this. You can chat.
I'm doing one with Lani very soon. Amazing. I'm sure we'll talk about this there.
Lani, who's that? No, we won't talk about that. So she can be on. I'm going to do a podcast with her soon as well. I guess maybe let's finish up. We've been going for 40 minutes now. We have a house inspection coming up, so we got to get off. So my last question that we'll finish on is what you just said then about bringing in the right people. How do you say you're in a point where, because we've experienced this ourselves, like, how do you attract, find, communicate, set boundaries, and bring people into your life, because it's a very, very vulnerable position to be in. You're bringing someone in to the most intimate part of your relationship. Like well, I guess not for everyone, but for a lot of people, that is the most intimate part. Like there's like having that moment where you see your partner having sex with another person with you right there. I don't think you can really get more intimate than that. I'm sure it's possible, but yeah. So how have we gone about it, and what's worked, what hasn't worked? Because we obviously haven't been perfect with it, but we've been pretty good with it, to be honest. But we've been pretty picky.
I think for us, what we actually found is key, especially with the women side of it, because obviously for me, that's where the jealousy and insecurities can come out, is establishing a connection before you do anything physical. I think that's really helped. So getting to know the person, making sure that they share similar expectations, similar values to you, making sure that they're on the same page and that you get along energetically. Like,
absolutely.
Because I feel like the more not just connected, but if you've gotten to know someone a bit better and, you know, you've been able to establish your boundaries and really talk about yourself, they're going to be so much more respecting of you, and there's going to be a bit more trust than if it was just with someone that you've just randomly picked up. They're going to trust you. They're going to have more respect for your relationship and for your boundaries. So that's something that works for us, is if we're going to bring anyone into the bedroom, we have to get to know them a bit more beforehand, whether that means meeting up for coffee or, you know, going for lunch or something, or meeting up with them one-on-one to get a vibe of what their energy is like. But that has been something that's been integral for this to work for us. And it's actually been a way for us to find the right people to do it with, because you can tell a lot about a person by the first time you meet them.
Yeah. If you've got, just for the gentleman as well, depending on the setup, and like the way I've always gone is it has to be a fair and win-win and equal to everyone. So if you've got the attitude like, I'm just doing this so I can just bang some more girls, it's
not going to work.
It's not going to work. Your partner will feel left out. She'll feel worthless. It will destroy her self-worth. So please, gentlemen and ladies, I guess, like be picky. Take the time. Like, don't be so rushed. You don't have to do it this week, next month, or whatever. Find the right people. Meet up with them one-on-one. Connect with them, and make sure you guys trust each other. Because if you're going, again, you're bringing them into the most vulnerable part of your life. You want to trust this person.
And then this goes back into the stigma around open relationships. Everyone just sees open relationships being like, oh, you just want to fuck other people. But no, actually, in order to have any type of openness in your relationship, your communication needs to be next level. Like, people who are in those types of relationships, the communication is so much more frequent, so much more often, and so much more honest, and it's tougher. And I think that's one of the things as well, is you've got to be willing to communicate if you want this to work.
Absolutely. Anything else? I don't want to ask any big questions because we could go for another 20 minutes, but is just anything else that you'd like to add on while I get ready to finish this off? Is there anything else you'd like to add on around tough conversations, our relationship, what works really well? Just anything else you want to add on that you'd feel would add some value here?
I think with this, doing your own work on yourself is the biggest thing. Like, put in the work for yourself and better yourself. Just try to be a better version of yourself every day. Figure out what are your triggers and work on them. That would be my biggest takeaway.
I love that. Georgia, if anyone, obviously, if people follow me, I'm sure they know who you are. If anyone wanted to connect with you or follow your stuff, you're doing incredible content on this stuff, and the more confident and authentic and feminine and the more real you become, and I know that you know what I mean when I say that, it's just amazing the people that you're going to help, and you're already helping. But if anyone was interested in connecting with you, just chatting to you, doing any work with you, any of the courses, we do have a program together as well. But besides just that, how would someone reach out to you? How would they connect with you?
I would say the best bet to reach out to me would be through Instagram. My handle is Georgia Carter Official, or Twitter, Georgia Carter 33. I think those are the two platforms I'm mostly active on. But if you want more of like my opinion on things like this, or just my take on other topics, I also have a YouTube channel, which is, the handle is Georgia Carter 33 as well, where I talk more about this sort of things and more Q&A, so you can get a bit of a more understanding into my insight. But if you wanted to specifically reach out to me, message me on Instagram. Last question. I know I say it's the last question every time, but what's your vision when it comes to this area of your life? For the openness? The openness, not just, okay, with us, your vision to help others. Education. Education's always been the biggest thing for me, because I feel like people have so much potential once they learn more. And I really want to help inspire other people to want to do the work themselves, not because someone told them to do it, to really get to a place where, you know, I actually really want to work on myself and I want to explore this part of myself and I want to help get people to that point.
I fucking love that. We're going to end it on there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the outro, and I'll chat to you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining me today in this presentation, guys. I hope you got some value from it. If you could like, comment, share it with a friend, I would really appreciate it. Secondly, I do have a lot of courses and programs available online if you're looking for further work with me, or whether you'd like to work personally with me as well as a coach. And also, there is a link below where you're watching this or consuming this content. There is a link there to support the channel, to allow me to do this more, help out more, give back more. If you are in the position to give back and support, I would really, really appreciate it. It would allow me to just do this more and more and more and bring more content to you. Have an awesome day. I'll see you on the next presentation.